Hello everybody, this is Dr. Kevin Novak, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace my carbon with polyfilters. Now I've been seeing some YouTube and people saying how great that their little magic thing that they do, they use polyfilters and everything in their aquariums. Now polyfilters are nothing new. So here's my aquarium, it's at 230, water change hasn't been done in a month. And this is about normal after a month. I use normal carbon. You've seen in my other Penplex, I think it is. Costs $8. Buy it at a Myers. I use 28 ounces. If you've seen how I did my pre-filter, you'll see the carbon I use and everything. It's normal carbon. So there's my TDS. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to change one thing about the tank. All parameters are going to stay the same. I'm going to empty all the water out of the sump. Okay, emptying the water doesn't hurt the anoxic filter right away. And I'm going to empty all the water in the aquarium. Now here's the polyfilter. Harmful organics, toxic ammonia, heavy metals, all forms of phosphates, medication. You know, some of these things carbon takes care of. Medication, carbon takes care of. Heavy metals, carbon takes care of. Harmful organics, carbon, once again. Coloring of water, malachite green, methylene blue, stuff like carbon will get rid of that. I've had carbon 3 months old. I can put some methylene blue in there and it'll take it right out. And that's 3-month-old carbon. It only costs $8. So the thing about this polyfilter here, excuse me, is a 12 by 12 sheet costs anywhere between $30 to $40. It's very expensive. Now, I'm going to leave out the little mesh out of this because I'm not going to be using carbon, so I don't have to worry about it going through the grate here. But this is a 12 by 12 sheet. This is over 6 inches in diameter. Therefore, I've already used half a sheet, so that's about $20 worth of polyfilter right there. We're looking at $20 worth of polyfilter. Or I could fill it full of $8 worth of carbon and then 2 or 3 months later dump it. But that's $8 worth of polyfilter there. It's very expensive stuff, by the way. It was expensive a long time ago. Now, this has been around for 46 years. Made 1976 is when polyfilter came around. And it's been made the same for 46 years. And it's a chemical treated filter mat is all it is. And I tested it back in the 80s. I tested it with a product called Dick Boyd's Chemipure. And when I tested Dick Boyd's Chemipure, I liked it for saltwater. And I told the aquarium stores around here they ought to carry it because I used to have to order it directly from Dick Boyd's. And Dick Boyd's claim was when he used Chemipure that his saltwater tank had went without a water change in 5 years for a saltwater tank. He had a big saltwater tank and everything else, and went 5 years without a water change because he used Chemipure. And to give you some idea of Chemipure, is the carbon that's in there is the one that nuclear-powered submarines use. Okay, it's the same carbon. This is, of course, back in the 80s. I don't know if he still uses that kind of grade, but that is the highest grade carbon you can use in the world. The one that they use in the nuclear-powered submarines. And that would rate, let's say, a 10, being the best. The carbon I use in my aquarium will rate about a 1, and your other high-end carbons rate maybe a 3 compared to Dick Boyd's, maybe even a 4. That's about it. That's how good that carbon is. So here's the water change. It's 153, 154. That's with a water change. I'm using the polyfilter. I just did the water change. There's the TDS meter. It's telling you what it is. Okay, so I left the meter in there, and I'm monitoring it to see if the TDS is going to go up because I'm not doing anything to it. So we'll see what happens with the TDS. But anyhow, these polyfilters, I'm looking at all the advertisement to the polyfilters. Okay, and I'm reading all the advertisement. And of course it says it removes dyes, colors, solutions when added, methylene blue, malachite green, Well, carbon does that. No biggie there. No impressiveness there. I don't have to pay $40 to buy a polyfilter to remove stuff like that. Dark brown, humic acids and stuff. Carbon will remove it. Well, this out of the TDS that you're looking at here, 162. This is only after about an hour and a half, 163. The TDS is starting to rise already. And this is using a polyfilter. And then I checked it again about when this was running for 3 hours, a little over 3 hours, and it was 167. So the TDS is rising. Now you would think the TDS would go down because the polyfilter claims it takes inorganics and organics out of the aquarium. Okay, so what's it taking out if my TDS is rising? When TDS is reading, it's reading organics, and it's reading calcium and things like that. It's reading nitrates and phosphates when you have a TDS, and this is what it's reading. It doesn't tell you what it's reading, but these are things that are in there that rise or make your TDS rise and become higher. And it's already 163, and I tested it when it was 3 hours at 167. Okay, maybe it's new, maybe I got to give it some time to run. Okay, so in the advertisement, I'm just reading you right from the advertisement, people, okay? So don't get mad at me, I'm just the messenger here. It says remove the polyfilter when you're going to add vitamins or trace elements. Okay, that would make sense, right? You're going to put something in your tank, just like carbon, same way, you got to remove it. But then it says polyfilters will not remove trace elements included in marine salt mixers. Well, some of the marine salts have a little bottle, and you put the salt in, and then you put your trace elements in. But it says remove the polyfilter, but then it says the polyfilter will not remove trace elements. Well, hold it. Why am I removing it to put trace elements in my tank, but then you're saying it doesn't remove it? Then I shouldn't have to remove it if you're claiming it doesn't remove it. That's a little confusing, isn't it? Does it or does it not remove it? It either does or it doesn't. What are we doing here when the advertisement's given it? Okay, so removing colors and tannics and stuff like that, yeah, my $8 carbon does that. So that's not impressive. And we got to remember this is 46-year-old technology that I'm reviewing here. And for you newcomers to the hobby, this is probably great stuff, but you don't realize how old this polyfilter stuff is. And it will remove medications. Well, so will carbon. It will remove medications, so they recommend you remove all carbon. Carbon will remove colors, so does polyfilter. Carbon will remove odors, and so will polyfilters. And there's a TDS in my tank right before the water change, and it says then here's something I guess that makes the polyfilter get an edge that people think about. Polyfilter will remove ammonia to help the biological filter, but it won't remove all the ammonia, but it will remove ammonia and nitrates and phosphates. It will help with removing some of the nitrates and some of the phosphates. Okay, removes ammonia. Now this is something that you guys at hobbies need to know. There's a little trick with removing ammonia, and it's been used for a long time, as you know, 46 years. It's been used a long time. And the use of chemical additives to eliminate ammonia is redundant. Okay, it is. The only effective way to eliminate ammonia is with a healthy biological filter. There are some organic chemicals, which that's what they're using, organic chemicals on the polyfilter, which will bind with ammonia, resulting in a negative ammonia test kit reading. Okay, it will bind with it. Unfortunately, chemicals produce a primary amine. Any organic derive or ammonia formed by replacement of hydrogen with one or more alkaline groups. Okay, a amine is an organic compound derived from ammonia by replacing one or more hydrogen atoms by organic groups. That's exactly what the definition is of an amine. So it is just as toxic to our aquatic animals as the original ammonia is. What they add into it, they're just as toxic. Now the nitrosomatous bacteria, which we all know about, bacteria cannot oxidize this chemical. Okay, you understand that? It can't oxidize the chemical that is used in your polyfilter. Within 24 hours, a heterotrophic bacteria will oxidize the primary amine, but you will never guess what it produces. It produces more ammonia. Now you are right back where you started from, except you have lost 24 hours by preventing the nitrosomatous access to the ammonia. Just remember, you cannot eliminate ammonia with chemicals. You need nitrifying bacteria. So what chemicals do is just lock in ammonia, and then they bind it until a bacteria will attack it, and then that bacteria, the heterotrophs, will just release it again. That's all it's doing. It's buying you time. They use it in koi shows for the koi tubs because they don't really have any biological filter as per se. So they use these chemicals that they pour into the vats, and these help keep the ammonia level from showing up on the test kit and bothering the koi and burning their gills or anything else. So they can keep colorful so the judges can judge the koi and not bother their colors. So that's what this polyfilter is doing. Now this is old technology. Like I said, this is 46-year-old technology. And this was a way of tricking the hobbyists and saying, oh, I added a polyfilter, and look, my ammonia's gone. Oh, wow, this is absolutely great. Well, it's not going to be gone for long. It's just going to come on back right into your aquarium within 24 hours. So all it's doing is buying you time, or you're putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And the problem is that your biological filter is not capable of handling your ammonia. And if you have to buy a polyfilter for that, then fix your problem. Don't put the Band-Aid on it. If your filter cannot handle your fish load, or if a fish dies and you have ammonia spikes, then your biological filter is inadequate. Okay, I'm using an oxy filter. I don't have any problems with ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, phosphates. But I guess 46 years ago, these were things we had to contend with. Nitrates and phosphates and stuff. How do you get rid of them? And the polyfilter then served its purpose 40 years ago. But today we have anoxic filters. They don't clog up. They last for 20, 30 years. You make a biostenosis clarification basket. You got it for life. You don't have to replace anything. You don't have to keep rebuying anything. Takes care of your nitrates, takes care of your phosphate, and your ammonia. It's like, what do you need the polyfilter for? Well, okay, let's continue on. Okay. The polyfilter is supposed to take care of organics and non-organics. Okay. It does mention what it won't take out, but if it's removing excuse me, organics, that means your TDS should either stabilize, become lower, or increase just a little bit compared to my carbon. So if after a month I'm reading 230 and I'm using $8 carbon that lasts at least 2 to 3 months, this polyfilter should really never reach 230. After 30 days it should be lower. But as you can see through the meters, the polyfilter, the TDS is actually rising within a matter of hours. It's not stabilizing and it's not going down. It's rising. Well, so what is the polyfilter taking out then? If my TDS is starting to rise back up again within a matter of hours compared to $8 carbon. This is what I basically am saying. Is this just the emperor's new clothes? Are we being fooled into a false sense of security because we paid a lot of money for this? A 12 by 12 sheet costs $30 to $40, and it's got to be better than my carbon that only costs $8 for 28 ounces of it. Okay, so I start looking at the reviews, some of the reviews, and I wrote them down. And here's one review. I frequently use these, I guess they're talking polyfilters, in our reef tank and have not been let down one bit. When an issue arises, I don't know what kind of issue they're talking, they can be a real lifesaver. I also use them full time in a couple of tanks to help remove some organics and nutrients. Okay, what organics and what nutrients are you removing? Very generic when you're saying organics and nutrients. For a review, what does that mean to me? It's removing organics. This is something you read, and therefore you're just parroting what you have seen somebody else read. Here's another review. These filters work very well for any application. I've used them on both fresh and saltwater aquariums, and it absorbs toxins very well. Okay, what kind of toxins are we talking about here, people? It removes toxins, but you didn't say what kind of toxins are you talking about. See, it's a very generic term. If I was a new hobbyist, I'd read it. Oh, it removes toxins. Wow. Well, what kind of toxins? You know, was there something in there that? But you're not saying. You just say toxins, generic. You know, we need a better adjective than that. Great. Here's another review. Great job. Picks up all the nasty stuff. Okay, what's nasty stuff? Carbon picks up nasty stuff. I mean, what is nasty stuff? I don't know what that is. I don't know what nasty stuff is. I'm sorry. I'm not, 6 years old. I got to know what nasty stuff is. I don't know what nasty stuff is. Here's another review. This is a great filter medium to add to your already running filter or sump. Truly polishes the water. Well, you look at my fish tank. Do they look all cloudy? No, they're gin clear, and I use $8 carbon. So my water gets polished too. It polishes the water. I don't need to spend $40 to have my water look crystal clear. Look at the mauve color on this angel here. How nice it looks. In this aquarium, I'm just using $8 carbon. So do I need to spend $30, $40 on a poly filter to get what I can get with $8 carbon? No. Here's another review. I have used poly filters for years. The poly filter keeps my freshwater tank in check. What does that mean, in check? Well, what do you mean? It keeps it in check. I mean, it sounds good, but I don't know what in check means. It keeps it in check. So does my carbon keep my aquarium in check. But I've told you nothing, have I? Filters out all the bad and leaves the good. Okay, what bad is it filtering out and what good is it leaving in? For a review, this told me nothing. You told me absolutely nothing. You've given me no vital information. Filters out all the bad. All the bad what? What bad? And then it leaves the good. Well, what good is it leaving? Is it leaving trace elements in? Well, in one thing it says it doesn't take trace elements in, and in another part in the same paragraph it says to remove it so it doesn't remove the trace elements that you put into your aquarium. But it says it doesn't remove it. This isn't making sense. So these reviews sound good to the person who is, what I should say, gullible enough to read these and take them directly at their word without asking the questions. What are you talking about? What nasties are in there that you're talking about? Ammonia, Well, we know the little trick with ammonia, best to have biological filters. It's not going to do much there. Nitrates and phosphates, yeah, 40 years ago, 46 years ago, but nitrate and phosphates, we can take care of nitrates and phosphates with biosinosis clarification baskets with the anoxic filter. We don't need this $40 12 by 12 inch mat anymore. Then I'm just reading exactly what I found from the advertisement. It says right from the advertisement, the world's best mechanical and chemical filter. Really, the world's best? I mean, look how clear this water is. This is only $8 carbon. And then someone's making it's the best mechanical filter in the world. So if I put a 20 micron filter on my tank, this would outdo it? I don't think so. You know, I'm sorry. That's just falsely stating. And chemical filter. Well, maybe it is chemical filter. What chemical filters are out there? What are you comparing it to? What chemical filters? Is this another wording like we use like a car commercial where it's best in its class? Well, what class is that? You never tell us what class that is that the car's in. You're just saying best in its class. Well, of chemical filters. Okay, so that's the kind of advertisement wording that they use. But from what I'm reading, that my $8 carbon, it will also take medication out. It will also take colors out. It will also take smell out. It will do everything the polyfilter is claiming it will do, but a fraction of the price. Okay. Now, if you're buying it because of nitrates and phosphates to help you with that problem, then why aren't these reviews saying that I had a nitrate problem and it literally took out my nitrates? One of the reviews do say it, that it helped reduce my nitrates in half. It doesn't say how many parts per million, but he was also doing water changes. And he was also using the polyfilter. Well, why did you do the water changes? Why didn't you just use the polyfilter and see if your nitrates would go down automatically just by using the polyfilter without water changes? Now, how do we know, was it the water changes or was it the polyfilter helping you keep your nitrates down? And was this the only element you changed in the equation? Now, with this tank, the only element I changed is the carbon. It's going to be treated the same way as if it had the carbon in it. I am not going to change anything. It won't get a water change for 30 days. In February, it'll get another water change. We're going to see how clear it is. We're going to see what the TDS is. The TDS shouldn't be higher. If the TDS is 230, then what's the point of the polyfilter? What's it doing? Okay, if the TDS is still up high, what organics then is it taking out? Okay, because then it should, for this price, be doing better than normal $8 carbon. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. Then after I test this, I'm going to test out Dick Boyd's ChemiPure. We'll see how well the ChemiPure does. Because sometimes I think what happens is we buy these products. They're very old. They've been on the market for years, a long, long time. And the manufacturers have made their money off of it, and they're still making money off of it. And they're making all these claims, as I have read, and we realize that carbons do the same thing, whatever. And some people then try to diss people with carbons by saying, oh, it causes hole in the head disease. Well, what research has said this? What research has said that carbon causes hole in the head disease? Where is this coming from? What is in the carbon that causes hole in the head disease? Is there a virus? Is there a bacteria in the carbon? What causes it? Why is it that polyfilters don't cause hole in the head disease? And why is it only carbon that causes hole in the head disease? Where is the scientific research? If someone can leave a link where I could read scientific research on someone actually scientifically proving that carbon does make hole in the head disease, then I'd like to read it. Leave me a link so I can read it. And then I'll know exactly what you're reading. Otherwise, we'll see in 30 days exactly what happens to my tank. As you see, it's crystal clear. This is $8 carbon. Is the polyfilter going to do better? Is my TDS not going to rise? It's already rising already. So until next time, this is Dr. Kevin Novak. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.